This is crucial for the Broncos to win today. A huge game in Week 4, Monday Night Football on primetime. Bo Nix and the Broncos, Sean Payton and the Broncos are looking to finally get back after two heartbreaking losses back-to-back. They're trying to get back on track with some advantageous results in the AFC West this week. But yeah, I'm Sebastian with Broncos Digest with my co-host Mark. How are we doing today?
Doing awesome. Cannot wait for a primetime Broncos game. You turn the clocks back to last year when they played the Browns on Monday Night Football. That was a electric game.
Who would have thought? Yeah.
I know, right? Under the national stage, a lot of fun. And we know that this team can bring a winning mindset into a game that's, being watched by thousands of people around the world.
Yeah.
And so I've been looking forward to it all weekend. Kind of weird yesterday watching football all day and not having the Broncos on.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting feeling, but some good games yesterday, but I'm geared up and ready to go for tonight.
Yeah. Who would have thought? I mean, I thought the Chargers were geared up for a 4-0 start, but they lose to the Giants of all teams. So, they're not exactly running away with the AFC West just yet. The Chiefs pummeled the Ravens. That wasn't exactly great, but the Raiders also lose their own heartbreaker of a game. So the Broncos really have a chance to at least even things up with the Chiefs and be just behind the Chargers once again. So we have a huge opportunity tonight. Not a game that we can really afford to lose. That's kind of behind us at this point. So we're just going to have to really hope for the best. And in the end, this isn't a game that the Broncos should lose. That we were kind of gifted facing a backup quarterback at home in Denver. Something that, a lot of Broncos fans, you're never thankful for an injury, but you do take advantage of situations when they're presented to you. So it's just one of these things that Bengals, they do not have a good defense. Their coach has been criticized for their just in-game situational game planning, and then Bo really just has a chance here. The defense has a chance here. Sean Payton has a chance here to get things back on track and to really kind of reestablish trust with the fan base. A lot of Broncos fans have been feeling a bit, not betrayed, but a little bit disconcerted just about the way that this team was so hyped in the offseason. And then you drop to 1-2 after two just heartbreaking losses. Colts, obviously, a lot better than most people thought they would be. We should have won that game. Chargers game, we also should have won, kind of gave away. So the Broncos are in the middle of a transitionary stage, in my opinion, trying to learn how to finish games at the end. And I do think that they are capable of it. I just want to see Bo Nix plant his feet tonight. That's all I'm asking. If he can plant his feet before he throws, then we're looking good. But speaking of Bo Nix, I just kind of want to jump right into this. He is 2-1 in primetime games in the NFL. And this is a Monday night game, so this does count as prime time, obviously. We'll be wearing the all blues once again, the gorgeous blues. Very excited about that. And then I also kind of wanted to shout out just a specific aspect of the Broncos offense. Courtland Sutton, who has the fourth most receiving touchdowns in the NFL since 2023, so the past 2 years. Sutton is tied with Tyreek Hill at 20 and only trails Amon St. Brown with 26, Jamar Chase 25, and Mike Evans 25. So I just kind of like to take this conversation in the offensive direction to start things out. I think Courtland Sutton is going to be a huge piece tonight, as will J.K. Dobbins, which we'll get to. But Sutton, just because he doesn't do so well on fantasy, does not mean he does not have an impact. And I really want to emphasize how much of a connection he and Bo do have. It's just about getting on the same page and hitting a rhythm, hitting stride. And I really do think that tonight, just considering the Bengals defense, he is primed for a great night tonight. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think one of the biggest themes in the locker room for this team, just based on how the season's gone so far, is kind of a look forward, don't think about the past mindset.
Yeah.
And so specifically after the Chargers game, like a lot of the guys in the locker room, including Court and J.K. Dobbins, have the mindset of we know what we're capable of. We know what we can do as an offense. We know what we can do as a team. We can't think about the fact that these were close one-score games that ended in the last few seconds of the game, both of them being field goal winning games for the other team. You have to look forward and you have to think about who you have on your team, what your capabilities are, both from an offensive and a defensive standpoint, and you have to put that into play in the next game. And I think, Courtland Sutton specifically, he had a really good quote in the locker room with the media that was something along the lines of, we know what we're capable of. We know what we can do. There's no point in dwelling on what we've already had happen in the past. It's a long NFL season. We're a strong team, and we know that we can win some of these games. And so I think that, a guy like Court having that mindset coming into tonight, he's going to play a really big piece in the Broncos, hopefully being able to scrape out this win.
Yeah.
And he hasn't had his quote unquote breakout game yet this season. I mean, he's had some touchdowns here and there. The beautiful longest passing touchdown of the season for Bo, the 52-yarder on fourth down in the Chargers game, scored in the first game against the Titans as well. But he hasn't had his 6, 7, 8 reception game, and he hasn't, had that breakout performance yet. So I think we're due to maybe see something like that. And then J.K. Dobbins too. I feel like each game in the first 3 weeks of the season, we've seen him improve slightly a little bit more every single week. I mean, he had a touchdown in the first game. He had a touchdown in the last game against the Chargers to a really remarkable slot pass over to the side, and then he just stormed his way into the end zone. So that's another performance that I'm keeping my eyes on. I think that he's going to be, especially playing against a defensive line and a secondary for the Bengals that isn't the best in the league. I think he's going to be primed for a good night as well. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed for that one too, because I'm in a very close fantasy match right now, and he's my other running back tonight. I really, really need him to, not just for the Broncos to win, but for me to win my fantasy matchup.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that he can be primed for a good performance as well.
Yeah.
And then I think, I've heard a lot of speculation about this in the media too, as far as like what his leash is going to be like, what the play calling is going to revolve around for him. I'm hoping that like first few plays of the game, they're letting him sling it like 20 plus yards. Like he needs to get settled in, and he needs to get comfortable in this game early so that we don't have Bo in the second quarter approaching the second half of the game in a one-score situation, not comfortable and missing passes. I'd rather him miss passes and not be settled in right away. Hell, maybe even throw an interception in like the first few drives of the game, the first quarter, rather than taking a long time to let him find his grounding and settle in. So I'm hoping that they kind of let him have a longer leash right out the gate to hopefully get a little bit more comfortable under the primetime lights.
Yeah, absolutely. The crowd will be right behind him. I'm really hoping, kind of like if you remember the Falcons game from last year, just kind of dominant from start to finish. I'm really itching for a game like that. It should have been against the Titans, but it felt like, first game jitters to an extent. And then these past two games, we were right in it. He had a really strong 3 quarters, and in the fourth quarter, he struggled. And kind of similar with the Chargers game, it was like a strong second and third quarter, but the start and finish is where Bo really struggled. And that's kind of the worry here, is that if you want to win NFL games, typically starting strong and ending strong is a good recipe to do that. And Bo has yet to put together a full 4 quarters, which, you don't have to do necessarily to win an NFL game, but it is helpful. And it doesn't necessarily also all have to be on his shoulders. That we got together a really good offense for a reason. Not just with Sutton, but we have Marvin Mims. I think he's questionable for tonight. We'll see if he plays. But Troy Franklin is in the middle of trying to break out this season. Pat Bryant, we'll see, what he's able to do as he continues to develop. But RJ Harvery, J.K. Dobbins, we brought 2 new running backs to really rejuvenate this running back room. Evan Ingram, he's been cleared to play tonight. And we'd love to see him get involved, because we kept talking about he's the Joker, he's this, that's what they kept saying as a key word. And yet we have really yet to see that. And I'm really looking forward to, they've had all this time to kind of reflect and let the frustrations of these last second field goal losses really sink in and fuel them. And I think if they allow it to fuel them rather than hold them back, I do think that the Broncos are primed for a big performance and a really complimentary performance in general. But speaking of J.K. Dobbins, Bo did have to say this week, I think Dobbins' experience that he has, he's been a good back in the league for several years, and then he came in with some juice. So I think he's talking about specifically that Dobbins came in really wanting to prove something. He said that He chose to not stay with the Chargers. He came back. He came to the Broncos. Same thing with Evan Ingram. He chose the Broncos over the Chargers. So that shows that these teammates have belief not just in the Broncos defense or Sean Payton, but in the offense, in Bo Nix. And I don't think these last two losses really have deterred them at all. These are close losses. It shows you that you're right next to these guys, and 2 games you should have won, but it just shows that there's a little bit left to figure out about ourselves, an identity to develop. And once we play complementary football, where the defense is complementing the offense, field position's good, constantly scoring both on offense and defense. I mean, this should be a team to be reckoned with. I mean, it's just a matter of really getting on the same page and trusting that everyone has each other's back, and that this isn't going to be just another repeat. If it becomes a pattern it has in the past, where the Broncos have really struggled against winning teams, then that might start to become what people would consider a curse, or something that's like a monkey that you have to get off your back. I don't think we're there yet, but the narrative's starting to develop. So a good way to get rid of it is beat this team that you're supposed to on Monday night, and really just get that out of the way and nip it in the bud before it really becomes a problem.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree with you. I think that another interesting aspect about not just this game, but this whole weekend, and I'm hoping that this game continues to follow the path of this narrative, is this last week of the NFL, it almost felt kind of like a back to reality weekend. There were a lot of really bizarre, interesting narratives coming into this weekend. Chiefs are having the worst start of the last 10 years. The Chargers are going to be 4-0 because they're going to beat the Giants, and all these narratives and these things going on of these teams having historically good starts. The Colts too. The Colts were on pace to potentially become 4-0. But I mean, the Chiefs, back to reality. They won a game that they are more than capable of winning. The Giants, really good performance with the rookie Jackson Dart playing his first starting game. And then, that game for the Chargers slipping away. The point that I'm getting at is the first few weeks of the NFL has been kind of bizarre. 2 weeks ago, you look at the 3 blocked field goals that all happened in the span of 5 minutes of one another.
Yeah.
And all these crazy outcomes and these teams that are not winning games that they should be. I almost feel like the Broncos game tonight can end this last week of football's narrative of okay, we're back to reality. Teams are having the records that they should have. They're performing how they should. And I think that the Broncos are 110% a 2-2 team. And I think that's what we should see after tonight. But on the other hand, I mean, if they somehow do let this game slip away, that becomes a whole different story and a pretty major problem.
Agreed, and especially with the Eagles coming up next week, this is just not you can't afford to go 1-3 with a strong chance of becoming 1-4. It's just it's not in the cards. It's going to derail your season very early. So I mean, unfortunately, in week 4 we do have a must-win game. It's never something you want to have to say, but the Chiefs they were in the same situation this week as well. 1-2. Trying to avoid being 1-3 against the Ravens. Ravens are now looking really, really bad. They're getting blown out at home. It was in Kansas City. But overall, this is an opportunity for the Broncos to not just get on the right track, but to really avoid a lot of people kind of signaling the red alarm. And that's just never a spot you want to be in, this early in the season, the first quarter of the season. And it's against a team you should beat. We said that against the Colts, but now it turns out the Colts are really good. But the Bengals got utterly destroyed by Carson Wentz and the Vikings. So it's okay, we know what the Broncos are capable of doing to that offense. We have one of the best defenses in the league, and we have an offense that has a high ceiling. It's just a matter of can they hit that ceiling, which I believe that they are. But speaking of the defense also, Zach Stevens had to say the Broncos pass rush has been unstoppable this year. Denver's defense leads the NFL in sacks, QB hits, and pressures. That's amazing, and I just don't want that to be forgotten about. And then Mike McGlinchey had to say, sometimes winning can suffocate or hide your problems. So all losing does is add pressure to get it right. It's week 4. We've got a lot of football left, and we've got a lot of time to clean stuff up, but it has to be this week. So they do feel the pressure of this game. They're knowing that there's a big game coming next week, and I'm not. It's any given Sunday. Always, the Eagles are not going to go undefeated this year. They will drop a game at some point, but at the same time, that's a hard team to beat regardless, and they're healthy. And the Broncos, we've been having some health problems, but overall, we haven't had anything devastating yet. Knock on wood. But it's just a matter of stay healthy, take care of what you have to take care of this week, tonight. And then we'll be riding high into an Eagles game that we'll feel like we can actually win rather than being 1-3 and just completely desperate. Because those are just two very different mentalities. Because you always want to have a chance to have a statement game. And no one's going to be expecting a statement game if you lose to the Jake Browning Bengals. But speaking of Jake Browning, you said that you wanted to have some points about just regarding how last year's Bengals game went, where we were facing Joe Burrow and the Bengals in Cincinnati, versus maybe what to expect tonight against Jake Browning and the Bengals and just their offense.
Yeah, I mean, tonight's going to be a completely different game for the Broncos than what they were preparing for and expecting at the start of the season.
Mm-hmm.
The first few weeks of the season, you're thinking, okay, we got a primetime Monday Night Football game against a team that we should have beat last year to clinch a playoff spot. They obviously later did end up clinching that playoff spot, but you are playing against a team who now doesn't have their starting quarterback in Joe Burrow. So you're playing against a team that's struggling offensively, struggling defensively, and now lacks their backup quarterback. I think an interesting thing to keep an eye on for this game from a Bengals offensive standpoint and a Broncos defensive standpoint is the Jamar Chase, Patrick Surtain matchup. Obviously, the Broncos secondary is a force to be reckoned with, including Patrick Surtain himself. He has very high coverage rate. Not a lot of people able to generate any sort of receptions and offense against him. And so it's going to be interesting seeing a backup quarterback who already runs a pass-heavy offense try to get targets on his wide receiver one against a guy like Patrick Surtain. And then that also raises the question of, does that mean that guys like T. Higgins are going to be seeing the ball more? Are we going to see a breakout night for him? And so the fact that the Broncos have such a high defensive production rate at this point in the season, as well as a decently high offensive production rate in certain areas of offense as well, it's definitely worth considering and noting, like, how is Jake Browning going to try to approach this game, and how easily are the Broncos going to be able to prevent that pass-heavy offense? And so, I'm keeping an eye on that, like I said, Jamar Chase, Patrick Surtain matchup, because over the last few weeks, we've seen coaches for the Chargers and the Colts play around a little bit more with the Patrick Surtain targets, and it's almost been working out more in the favor of these other teams than the Broncos. Patrick Surtain's had his work cut out for him, and he's having maybe not as great of games as he's had in the past. And so I'm excited to hopefully see him step it up tonight, and I'm curious if Jake Browning will be able to live up to being able to dish out to his wide receiver one, who's arguably one of the best wide receivers in the league.
Yeah, and just in Bengals history. But overall, my guess is that the plan is going to be throw it up and kind of like see what your receivers can do on man-to-man coverage. My guess is the way that the Broncos are going to combat that is do a lot of zone coverage, and if that's not working, if they're able to beat that somehow, then we'll switch to man and then let them try us man-to-man. But especially, Riley Moss. That's been a conversation that we, had earlier this week. A lot of people are frustrated with his performance, but it comes down to, listen, people don't want to throw to Patrick Surtain. He covers just too well, so they're going to go to the second option. And when your second option is T. Higgins, who many will argue is the best wide receiver 2 in the league, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be hard, and Riley definitely struggled with that last year when Joe Burrow was throwing him the ball. So it's unfair to an extent to blame everything on Riley. He's doing his best, but at the same time, people might be clamoring for Jahdae Barron if, once again, Riley is struggling to cover these guys, especially when Jake Browning is throwing the ball. So I am looking forward to seeing how that works out. My guess is, like I said, that Jake will be looking to just kind of throw it up. That's how they won against the Jaguars when Jake was playing for most of that game. Throw it up to his guys, let them make a play, let pass interferences, move them downfield and at least score a field goal, or if not more. So we just got to be better than that. We got to make sure that we're staying penalty-free, playing clean ball. And, there was a funny clip going around this summer of of Jamar Chase and some other receivers talking to Chad Ochocinco like how to beat Patrick Surtain. They're like, no, that technique won't work. This technique won't work. They were like constantly going back and forth like what's gonna work and what won't work. And Chase has been kind of looking forward to this game, and obviously he's maybe feeling not as excited without Burrow throwing him the ball. But I do expect just several times that they're going to be tested, because when you have a quarterback who's severely limited like Browning is, the coaches are going to just kind of say, throw it up and just let's see what happens. Let our guys make a play. So just we got to avoid injuries and avoid causing penalties. But overall, I have faith in this defense and what they're going to be able to do and just cause turnovers. The pass rush is really going to be a lot of the story, in my opinion. Just getting to Jake Browning soon and quickly to avoid the T. Higgins or Chase getting downfield and allowing those deep balls, those one-on-ones and whatever. But yeah, that's kind of what I've got for the defense at least. But anything else you wanted to add for defensively?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping T. Higgins isn't a problem in this game.
Yeah.
I have him on my fantasy team as well, and he's been horrible this year.
Yeah.
I benched him this weekend because I think last weekend he dropped a whopping 3 points, which is not going to cut it. So
Jeez.
I'm gonna be pissed if he
goes
has
off.
a break. If he has a good night tonight, not only is it against my team, but it's on my fantasy bench and not my fantasy roster.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just the secondary to the fact that I hope that, he's able to be taken care of. And I hope that the Broncos secondary doesn't have any issue covering those two guys, because after that, it's a significant drop off. There's not a lot of offensive threats after that wide receiver 1 and that wide receiver 2. And I just think that I agree. The pass rush is going to be the most crucial aspect of this game. And if the Broncos can find a way to play their game and get to Jake Browning quick, I'm hoping that this game will be a easy must-win takeaway and that we can cruise into our probably most daunting opponent of the season next week with, the most ideal record that we could have hoped for after what's been a rough last few weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of want to emphasize to like Broncos fans, Broncos country, anyone who's watching, that I'm not worried about this team yet. We've had some frustrating losses, but there's a lot of teams, like look at the Titans. They just lost 26-0. We are not in that territory. We are not getting shut out. The Falcons got shut out. There's a lot of inconsistent teams out there, and we're going up against good teams and probably should have beaten them. It's just learning how to finish. So tonight, I just want to see a complete game. And if it's not a complete game, I just want to see a win. We all want to see a win, no matter how it comes. But obviously, we don't want to see ourselves struggle against a team that we should beat. And I don't think that we will. I'm excited for prime time. Those blue uniforms are going to look gorgeous. I'm looking for Sean Payton, too. He's my X factor. I want to see some really good play calls. Don't underestimate this defense just because they haven't been performing well. It's early in the season. Look, the Giants beat the Chargers. You just don't know what's going to happen. The NFL is the NFL for the reason, just most parity in any sports league. So you just can't take any team lightly. That's just kind of how it works. And but I'm expecting our Broncos win. I'm expecting us to be riding high in Mile High after tonight. But very excited to see how tonight goes. But any final thoughts?
Yeah, one other quote I wanted to circle back to J.K. Dobbins at the end of the Chargers game last week. He got asked about, how he feels about the outcomes of these last few games, and he put it, I think, in the best way that anyone's talked about what's going on for the Broncos so far. The Broncos didn't get beat by the Colts. The Broncos didn't get beat by the Chargers. Yes, they lost to both those teams, but they're beating themselves. Mm-hmm. They're making costly mistakes. They're making costly penalties, and they're making mistakes at the end of the game that's allowing, that buzzer beater field goal. It wasn't like a 2-score game. It wasn't a blowout. Just like you said, the Broncos are beating themselves, and I think it's about time that we see them click in all aspects of the game and win a game with the production and the power that we know that they're capable of. And so I think the whole team has a lot of confidence going into tonight. I think a lot of them are really excited to be on the primetime stage again, and I think we're gearing up for some really good football tonight.
I agree. I mean, we'll definitely want to watch this game over the Dolphins and Jets, the toilet bowl. So, yeah, no one's turning in that game. But overall, yeah, until after the game, everyone, we will do all breakdowns and reviews of how things went. But yeah, we'll see you guys in the next video. Go Broncos.